Hey everyone, we are working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy the content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
You just watched a head coach who looks like a man who has been handed a weapon he's been dreaming about his entire career. That energy is not performance. That is not a coach doing a press conference because his media relations team told him to smile. That is Ben Johnson, one of the sharpest offensive minds in the National Football League, watching his puzzle come together in real time, piece by piece, pick by pick, signing by signing. And the centerpiece of everything he is building? A 22-year-old rocket ship from Louisiana named Zavon Thomas, who runs a 4.2840 and just made Ben Johnson literally sketch out plays on a notepad before the draft even happened. What is going on, everybody? I'm Fave, and this is Fav's, the only channel in the game giving you the full picture, the full drama, and absolutely zero corporate filler. Let's get into it. Because the Chicago Bears just got the guy everybody wants, and most of the league didn't even see it coming. Let's set the stage first, because context matters. The Chicago Bears, heading into the 2026 offseason, had a specific identity problem at the receiver position. They had two legitimate stars at the top, in Rome Odunze and Luther Burden. They had Caliph Raymond coming in as a proven veteran who knows the Ben Johnson system. But beyond that, the back end of the receiver room was, and I'm being kind here, extremely thin. Darnell Mooney was gone. The previous regime's attempts to find a reliable wide receiver 3 had come up short year after year. According to multiple Chicago media reports, the Bears were actively looking throughout the draft process to add a versatile, explosive playmaker who could stress defenses in multiple ways, not just as a traditional route runner, but as a gadget weapon, a return specialist, and a mismatch creator. They needed someone who could line up wide, line up in the slot, line up in the backfield, and just flat out run by people. They needed a chess piece in a chess player's offense. And then, at pick 89 in the third round, they found him. Zavon Thomas, wide receiver out of LSU, selected by the Chicago Bears with the 89th overall pick, ran a 4.28 40-yard dash at the NFL Combine. 4.28. Just sit with that number for a second. That is not fast. That is not even very fast. That is freakish. That is the kind of speed that forces defensive coordinators to rewrite their game plans on a Thursday night. As reported by NFL draft analysts and Bears beat reporters, Thomas stands 5'10" and a fraction, weighs 190 pounds, and over the last 3 years at both Mississippi State and LSU combined, for 40 rushes and 198 yards on the ground, a 5-yard average, in addition to his receiving production. This is not a one-trick pony. This is a multi-dimensional weapon, and most of the draft community completely missed it. Fave's personal opinion? Half the analysts who gave this pick a C- grade are going to be eating those words by October. The draft community loves to chase consensus boards. Ben Johnson chases fits, and Zavon Thomas fits this offense like he was designed for it in a laboratory. Now here is the detail that took this whole story from solid third-round pick to this organization is doing things differently, and it comes directly from Bears general manager Ryan Poles, as reported by Chicago Bears beat reporters following the draft. Poles revealed that when the Bears were going through their pre-draft process, Ben Johnson would sit next to him and literally begin sketching out plays with Thomas in mind before the pick was ever made. Let that land for a second. Before the Bears had even selected the kid, before he was officially a Bear, the head coach was drawing up plays for him. That is the football equivalent of a chef designing an entirely new menu around an ingredient he hasn't even purchased yet. That is a level of conviction that you simply cannot fake. According to the Bears' assistant director of college scouting, Johnson visibly reacted to Thomas on tape, started doing what scouts described as his signature rocking motion, and it was clear he was genuinely excited about what he was seeing on film. When Ben Johnson rocks to tape, you pay attention. This man helped turn a collection of mid-tier Lions skill players into one of the most dangerous offenses in the NFL. He does not get excited about players by accident. And here is the scope of what Thomas actually brings to this offense. As documented by the Chicago Bears organization and multiple draft analysts covering the pick, Thomas spent his final 2 seasons at LSU after transferring from Mississippi State, totaling 716 yards on 64 receptions with 6 touchdowns through the air, while also contributing 31 punt returns and 25 kickoff returns. Those are not supplementary numbers. Those are the numbers of a legitimate 3-phase weapon. Over his full college career, Thomas compiled 106 receptions for 1,213 yards, and 7 receiving touchdowns, 40 rushes for 198 yards, and an eye-popping 1,536 combined return yards with 3 return touchdowns. He scored touchdowns 4 different ways in college: receiving, rushing, punt returns, and kickoff returns. 4 different ways. The last Chicago Bear who did something like that was Tariq Cohen. And we will get to that comparison in just a moment, because it is a very big deal for this fan base. Now let's talk about the catch percentage argument, because this is important, and Fave does not want you to sleep on this. According to NFL draft analysts who tracked college efficiency metrics heading into the 2026 draft, Thomas posted a next-gen stats athleticism score of 83 at the Combine, ranking 9th best among all wide receivers in attendance. But the number that matters even more than the 40 time or the athleticism score is this. Thomas posted a catch rate of 71.4% during the 2025 college season. To put that in perspective, that catch rate places him right alongside first-round receiver Malachi Lemon, who posted 73.1%. For a player who was being projected as a late-round pick by many draft services going in, that catch percentage is not the profile of a developmental practice squad guy. That is the profile of a player whose hands are better than his draft position suggested. And the reason that matters even more in this specific situation is the context Thomas was operating in at LSU last season. His starting quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier, missed significant time due to injury, creating real instability at the most important position in the offense. And Thomas still produced at that level. Consistency through adversity. Reliable hands despite chaos around him. That is not a coincidence. That is a player with genuine football instincts. General Manager Ryan Poles was emphatic in his post-draft assessment, describing Thomas as bringing explosive speed that jumps off the tape, and saying that when paired with Ben Johnson and offensive coordinator Press Taylor, exciting things can happen. Fave's read on that quote? Poles is not speaking in corporate platitudes there. He is describing a football staff that has been waiting for a specific type of player and now has one. Ben Johnson's offense in Detroit was historically effective in part because of players who could create mismatches in the backfield. Most notably, DJ Moore, who lined up in the backfield for the Lions and became a mismatch nightmare. The Bears have made it clear they intend to use Thomas in that same role. According to draft analysts tracking Thomas's college production, he posted 6.3 yards after contact per catch in 2025, which shows that his speed doesn't just help him get open, it helps him break things after the catch as well. This is a complete offensive weapon, not a gadget in the derogatory sense. A weapon in the Ben Johnson offense sense. Now here is where the conversation gets genuinely electric for Bears fans who have been around long enough to remember the good times. The comp that is circulating in Chicago circles right now, and it is a big one, is Tariq Cohen. And before you roll your eyes and say, oh great, another undersized gadget player who burns hot for 2 years and then disappears, let me walk you through why this comparison actually goes deeper than the surface level. According to Pro Football Reference and the Chicago Bears organization's own historical records, Tariq Cohen was a first-team All-Pro and Pro Bowl selection in 2018. He finished that season with 99 carries for 444 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns while catching 71 passes for 725 yards and 5 receiving touchdowns. In that peak season, he became only the second player in NFL history to surpass 500 yards in rushing, receiving, punt returns, and kickoff returns in his first 25 career games. That is an elite multi-purpose player. And according to Bears historical records, Cohen became the first NFL rookie since Bears Hall of Famer Gale Sayers in 1965, and the first player overall since Terry Metcalf in 1975 to score touchdowns via rushing, receiving, passing, and punt return in a single season. That is a historic player. Chicago fans loved him. They loved what he represented. This little guy from nowhere who made the entire defense account for him every single play. Now here is why the Thomas-Cohen comparison carries real weight. According to people within the Bears organization as reported by Chicago beat reporters, the staff believes Thomas is actually a more natural football player than Cohen was at the same stage, with stronger instincts, more reliable hands, and a better overall feel for the game as a receiver rather than simply as a runner and return man. Cohen was undeniably explosive, but his development as a route runner was inconsistent, and his production dropped significantly in year 3 before the ACL injury effectively ended his peak. Thomas, at 5'10" and 190 pounds with a 71% catch rate at the Power 5 level, profiles as a player with more complete receiver skills from the jump. And crucially, Thomas is being deployed in an offense run by Ben Johnson, not Matt Nagy. The difference in offensive sophistication between those two systems is not a small gap, it is a canyon. Ben Johnson will find creative ways to get Thomas the ball in space. Press Taylor will draw up packaging that makes defensive coordinators genuinely lose sleep. According to his college career statistics, Thomas's return highlights include a 94-yard kickoff return touchdown, a 95-yard kickoff return touchdown, and a 63-yard punt return score. He does not just return kicks, he returns them to the house. Now I want to be honest with you here, because Favs doesn't deal in blind hype. There are real questions around Zavon Thomas that deserve to be addressed. According to multiple pre-draft evaluations from major draft analysts, Thomas was projected by several services as a late sixth-round to undrafted prospect going into the draft, and his selection at pick 89 drew criticism from analysts who felt higher-ranked receivers were still on the board. That is a legitimate concern. The Bears reached on this player relative to the consensus draft board. That is simply a fact. One of the most respected draft analysts in the business projected Thomas primarily as a return man and gadget role player, capable of creating explosive plays, which is meaningful context because it means his ceiling was seen in a more limited role than the Bears are publicly describing. And as several national analysts pointed out, this was the Bears' third consecutive offensive pick on day 2, in a draft where the team had real defensive needs, including edge rusher. There is a reasonable argument that Chicago prioritized offensive flash over defensive substance in the middle rounds. Fave's honest take? Both things are true at the same time. Yes, the Bears reached on the consensus board. Yes, there were higher-ranked prospects available. And also, Ben Johnson has earned the right to trust his process. This is a head coach who won a Super Bowl as an offensive coordinator, who turned the Detroit Lions into an offensive juggernaut, and who watched tape on Zavon Thomas and immediately started drawing up plays. He did not reach on Thomas out of laziness or panic. He reached on Thomas because he saw a specific player for a specific role in a specific offense, and he refused to let someone else take him. According to the Bears' own scouting staff as reported by Chicago beat reporters, Thomas was described as having the fearlessness of a return man who is not afraid to catch the ball and take it to the house, with the physical strength to break multiple tackles and score even against bigger defenders. That description sounds a lot like a player whose tape is better than his pre-draft ranking. And Caleb Williams with weapons like this around him? That offense is about to be fun to watch. Now let's talk about the Walter Payton connection, because you cannot do a story about Zavon Thomas coming to Chicago without acknowledging what makes this feel almost cinematic. As reported by Chicago media covering the draft, Thomas is a distant relative of Walter Payton, arguably the greatest Chicago Bear who ever lived and one of the most beloved figures in NFL history. Now, is Zavon Thomas Walter Payton? Obviously not. That would be an absurd comparison, and we are not making it here. But there is something genuinely resonant about a blazing, multi-dimensional, hard-working player from the South who carries even a distant family connection to the greatest Bear of all time, arriving in Chicago on an offense that is built around exactly the kind of instinctive, creative, space-creating football that Payton made famous. The Bears announced his selection with their legend Jimbo Covert at the podium. Thomas himself addressed the media virtually after the pick and said simply, "I'm able to do everything." A line that sounds simple but carries enormous weight coming from a player who spent 4 years in college proving exactly that. Fave's personal take? The Chicago fan base is going to love this kid. I don't know if he becomes an all-pro. I don't know if he hits his ceiling by year 2 or year 5. What I know is that he plays with joy, he plays with fearlessness, he plays with the kind of instinctive explosive energy that this city connects with. And in a year where the Bears are trying to establish a genuine identity under a first-year head coach, that kind of player matters beyond statistics. And here is the final piece of this puzzle that makes everything click into place. With the arrival of Zavon Thomas, Jade Walker, the undrafted fan favorite who scored the game-tying touchdown against the Packers in Week 16 last season, now has the clearest competition for his roster spot that he has faced since arriving in Chicago. Walker is a 6'3" receiver with moments of brilliance and real fan love. But Thomas offers elite speed, return value, and gadget versatility that Walker simply cannot match on pure profile alone. That competition is going to be one of the most compelling storylines of training camp. Two players, completely different profiles, both fighting for a role in an offense that can genuinely use both of them, but probably only has room for one at the end of the 53-man roster. Walker has every reason to come into camp with something to prove, and Thomas has every reason to come in ready to take that spot. That is how Ben Johnson wants it. That is the culture of competition he has been building since day one. The Bears right now, and I want you to really hear this, are building one of the most exciting offensive skill position groups in the entire NFL. Caleb Williams at quarterback, Colston Loveland and Cole Kmet, and now Sam Roush at tight end, which according to multiple analysts covering Chicago, maybe the best tight end room in the league. Rome Odunze and Luther Burden at the top of the receiver room, with real star potential. Khalif Raymond bringing veteran experience and return expertise. And now Zavon Thomas, 4.28 speed, return touchdowns from all angles, backfield versatility, and a head coach who was literally designing an offense around him before the draft clock ever ticked. That is not a depth chart. That is a weapon rack. And Caleb Williams, who has spent 2 years learning what it means to take NFL hits and keep coming back, is about to have more tools around him than at any point in his young career. This is the move, Bears fans. This is the pick. This is the guy, not because he is guaranteed to be great. There are no guarantees in this league, and anyone who tells you otherwise is lying to you. But because the process behind this selection was deliberate, intelligent, and driven by a coaching staff that knows exactly what it wants and went out and got it. Ben Johnson sketching out plays on a notepad before the draft even happened. That is the story. That is the proof that something different is happening in Chicago. That is Favs saying, watch this kid. Watch what happens when a 4.28 receiver gets handed the ball by Caleb Williams in a Ben Johnson offense, with nothing but open grass in front of him. The rest of the NFC North is about to find out what that looks like. That is a wrap for this edition of Favs. If this video fired you up, and it should have, because Chicago Bears fans have been waiting for this kind of organizational intelligence for a long time, smash that like button right now. Drop a comment below. Do you think Zavon Thomas becomes the next Tariq Cohen, or does he exceed that ceiling entirely? I want your takes, your arguments, your fire. And if you are not subscribed to Favs yet, hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell, because when training camp opens and this receiver room starts going to work, we are going to be all over it with the analysis nobody else is willing to give you. I'm Fave. This has been Favs. We'll talk soon.